Shalom, YAHAWASHI, YAHAWASHI, Barakatah. All praises to Yahawah, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI. Double honors to the elders out in New York, GMS, and honors to all the brothers around the world, lifting up the name of Yahawah, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, in the spirit of truth and honesty and sincerity. This is GMS Chicago Hebrew class. This is our second class. Today, first of all, for those that watched the class, the first class, the test that we're going to do, impromptu test. Once I tell you what the test is, I'm just going to run down what the test is. You pause the camera, and then you take the test, and then you grade yourself. Don't cheat. And then, you know, you work, what you find out that you don't have, you work on and get it better, you know, for next week, okay? The first part of the test will be write the the Paleo Hebrew from right to left and the Paleo characters. Write the Paleo Hebrew from right to left and the Paleo Hebrew characters. The second part of the test, write from right to left the Assyrian Hebrew characters. From right to left, the Assyrian Hebrew characters. The next part of the test will be to write out Yahawah, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI in the Paleo and in the Assyrian Hebrew, and transliterate it, so you'll know how to write it in all ways. The next part of the test will be to write out the 5 words that we had practiced last week, and and we're going to do it every week, Yahweh willing. The first word is Israel. Write it out in the Paleo and the Syrian, which is Yasharallah. Right? The Holy Tongue, LASHAWAN QADASH, in the Paleo and in the Assyrian. The word book, which is Sapar. The word beginning, all right, which is Ra'ashayath, and the word father, Abba, and write all of those in the Paleo and the Assyrian and transliterate it. And your name in the Assyrian and in the Paleo. All right? You can pause now and rewind and do whatever you need to do to take that test to sharpen your skills from what we learned last week. Okay. Now, this week's class, we're going to focus on learning the Greek alphabet characters, the Hebrew numbers 1 through 10, just the characters. We're not going to go into the names. We'll do that Yahweh next week. And then learning 5 new words. So we're going to be quick. Take notes as fast as you can. If you do have a question, we'll pause for a second. But basically, write them down when you get them. And we're going to move at a quick pace, okay? The first Greek letter. Now, one thing about the Greek, you'll see they have basically a capital and then a lowercase letter. And you'll see the capital first and then the lowercase. In some Greek scripture, you just see all lowercase. That's where I usually come across. But then sometimes you see the capitals. So we're going to learn both because we have to learn both, depending on what Bible you're using or what website you're using that goes into the Greek New Testament. Because the New Testament was primarily written in Greek. And even before we go into the Greek, just the scripture that came in my mind briefly, Ecclesiasticus, the prologue. This is why we go into the Hebrew, and this is talking about the Hebrew, but this will also go into why we go into the Greek, because the essence of what this is saying, or why we go into the Hebrew and go into the etymology, which is the study of true words. Because in order to have an understanding of the scriptures, you have to have an understanding of the Hebrew, which was primarily the Old Testament and parts of the New Testament, and then the Greek, which is majority of the New Testament. And most scripts in the New Testament is primarily in Greek. All right. This is wisdom of Yahawashi, the son of Sirach, or Ecclesiasticus, and the Apocrypha, which they took out of the scriptures. This is part of the prologue. This is the second prologue, halfway down. It says, to the intent that those which are desirous to learn and are addicted to these things might profit much more in living according to the law. Wherefore let me entreat you to read it with favor and attention, and to pardon us wherein we seem to come short of some words which we have labored to interpret. For the same things uttered in Hebrew and translated into another tongue have not the same force in them. And not only these things, but the law itself and the prophets and the rest of the books have no small difference when they are spoken in their own language. So when you're going into the Hebrew, you really want to understand what it's talking about in English. You got to go into the Hebrew and the Hebrew definitions to understand what it's really supposed to be. Because English falls short of the power and the force that's within the Hebrew. And the same goes for the Greek. For instance, the word world in Greek, and English world in Greek is translated in 2 or 3 different ways. One is oikomene in the scriptures, and then one is cosmos in the scriptures. And those have 2 totally different meanings. And one is even eon, which has a whole other meaning. We're not going to go all into that because that's a whole other lesson. But if you don't know the difference between each one of those words, you don't know the definition of the word world. So then you might be thinking, oh, the whole planet, and it's not talking about the whole planet. All right? So we have to go into the history of these words, into these different languages that the Bible was written in, which was originally in Hebrew and in Greek, so we can understand it in English. So the first Greek alphabet character is alpha. Alpha. And yes, it looks like an A, and it looks like and the small A looks like a small a. All right? Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. All right? You got that? All right. Moving on. The next character is beta. It looks like a capital B and a smaller capital B, but it has an elongated line that goes further down. It doesn't end like this right here. It goes further down right here. Okay? So that's pretty simple.
So that little line that goes above the bottom, that's what actually the difference?
That's the difference from a capital B than the small b.
Okay.
All right? And you'll see that a lot of this is like the English. So you know where our English is an amalgamation of other languages. It's over time, things change.
Now, one more question. That goes from left to right.
The Greek is written from right to left.
Right to left.
I mean, left to right.
Left to right.
Left to right. Okay. Hebrew is written from way. Right. Yeah. Greek is written Esau's way. Hebrew is written from right to left. Greek is written from left to right. So it gets a little tricky, but once you understand it, you got it. All right, that's a good question. The third letter is gamma.
Gamma.
And just for those who have looked at the Hebrew, you had the A, the A, the Ba, the B, and then the Ga, when they got Gamo. Okay? You'll find little nuances, and you can see the similarities between the languages and see how, they evolved. But this one looks like it's almost like the Hebrew Ga, but it's kind of backwards, and it's not the little slant on the top.
Does it has to be that same Y, or
it's really not a Y.
Because,
it's like almost like a Y, but instead of being longer right here to going down here, it's a little shorter. So it's almost like a Y. But if you'll see it, it's basically, I don't think there's any other character. Well, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
I was doing like that.
Yeah, that's a little bit too long. Because there's another Greek letter that's actually shaped like the Y, which will be a little bit longer. It's kind of hard to show you the difference. That's why I try not to make it. See, if you look at how that looks almost like a V. But if I was going to make this proportionate with that, I would have brought this line basically down to here. But I put it like kind of halfway, so to show you that it's not really a Y. It's really kind of something like the V with a little, downstroke on it.
Yeah.
All right.
Like a little slingshot.
Right. Absolutely. Now that's a good parable or analogy. Comparison kind. It's like a slingshot, so it's not as long. All right. Delta. The next one is delta. You can't never look down here, right? That's when I turn and it's basically like the dot.
Yeah, the dot.
You know? Delta. Alright.
I think I need to zoom in a little more.
I mean, if you need to zoom in, but you think that you can't see it?
Not good enough.
Alright, zoom in if you have to zoom in, brother.